Craig, as you know, we have been shooting stuff with Emily, her rise, her fall, and her re-rise. So I know nothing about you. We really know nothing about Emily's former business with you and Emily's former life, other than she was a little bit wild. And so you're here today to really spill the beans.
Fair enough.
Right. So let's go way back. How did you first meet her?
So I first met Emily when I was founding what is now Toronto Startup Toronto.
Okay.
And so we're now the largest entrepreneurial community in Canada, but at the first we were just a handful of people. Okay. And Emily came on and actively helped create the community at the early stages. So actually one of the best things she was good at is we started Startup Drinks together. And it was a monthly networking event where we brought entrepreneurs together to socialize, share ideas, brainstorm. And so she would book the bars. And she was really good at that. Talking to the bars, booking the bars, getting them going. And she showed up. A lot of people did not appreciate Emily early on when we were in the community, but I see the value that people have right away. Emily can talk to people. She is super energetic. She's a flame in the room, attracts people to her. She has an animal magnetism, and her energy is great. And she always shows up, at least at the beginning. Where other people had excuses and this and that. So, you use and magnify what's with you. And Emily was great, and we worked together for a fair bit, and I was, this was back in early 2015. And so as we started that, we started working on social media stuff together because she had a pretty good social media following. I think around the time it was around 40,000 followers on her Terry Tuesday account. And so we started working on a company called Gather. I don't believe it was Gather was the first name. I can't remember that off the call, but it eventually moved to Gather, which basically we helped people build their social media following, mostly on Instagram, later a little bit on Twitter. And Emily mostly did the work, working with the clients, where I would do a lot of the back end stuff, but mostly it was her business. And so it was a very interesting experience where we were building people's followers. We had some automated systems that allowed people to do some botting on Instagram to grow their following. And people were very happy with the results of the product. So that's how we kind of integrated early on. She went out and got some website design from a developer friend of hers. And it's a classic example of what not to do, what I teach entrepreneurs these days. It was a beautiful site. It looked great, but no one could tell what the company did. You couldn't buy a product, you couldn't book a call, you couldn't do anything, and you didn't know, but it looked great. So we quickly fixed it so people could actually buy stuff and try our product and that kind of stuff. And that's kind of how we started working together is, listen, I was advising her along the way as she was helping me in the community and I was connecting her with people. And then we just became great friends and started working together on a bunch of stuff. So that was the early days. And as we started progressively working together on the business stuff and on the startup stuff, Emily's wild side, as it were, started to interfere with things. So that's kind of the good side in a nutshell.
So let's qualify interfere.
All right, and so we'll start talking about some of those examples. A good example is we were trying to build a business. So we started some Instagram walks downtown. And one of the Instagram walks we did was in Kensington Market. And so we organized, we had about 40 people coming. And if you've ever been on one of these things, you need at least 2 people. You need one person at the front and one person at the back, pushing people along, otherwise you lose everybody. The more than that, the better. So Emily said she was there early. Great. I'm down there already. So I come there, I'm there about 15 minutes, I'm starting to meet people, I'm texting her, asking her, hey, are you there? I'm not getting a response. Like, oh, I'll be there in a few minutes, Now everybody's here, we're waiting. And so we start to go, and Emily is drunk with a friend at the bar in Kensington Market, probably, 200 feet away from where we are at the time. But she got there too early, started to have a drink, and then just didn't show up. And so now a lot of people came to see her because she was the Instagram sensation of the Instagram walk. So I got to make up all these excuses. So that was kind of one time. It's just, she was young, vibrant, she's meeting her friend, lots of stuff going on. Yeah, a couple of drinks, things happen. But a pattern became to form after a while. I remember she was speaking and mentoring at one of our social media workshops where people paid to come, and she left her notebook in the back of a taxi. So she's calling me, and I'm like, okay, freaking out inside, because now what do I do with these people that have paid to come and see her and meet her, that she's now running across town looking for this? That's just one example. Another one is, she just didn't show up a couple times. But having said that, she was always hustling. And always busy, always getting new clients, always doing this. And when I work with Gather and talk to the clients, people were kind of like, well, Emily's great when she's here and she's working with us, but getting her here is the problem. Because she overcommitted herself, she actually wanted a social life, she was splitting time between Toronto and Hamilton. Plus, at the young age, you probably, know a lot of the stuff about, I don't want to get into, her going to jail. That's another podcast, or you've already talked about that, I'm sure. We'll talk about the ramifications to her business when that happened. But before that, she was doing all this stuff and living that life. And I was hoping she would, eventually come back from it, because people go a little wild. But she didn't.
Well, let's skip forward to Emily getting arrested. And then how did you find out? What was the first thing that happened? What was like
So Emily and I have been working together for a couple of years now. Again, we started at the beginning of 2015. I don't remember the dates exactly for when she got arrested and things happened. So I know she was in stress. I knew some things were going on in her life, but not a lot. And I think I found out via text message.
From her?
Yes.
Okay.
So it was, hey, and then we started, I'm going to jail next week. It was like a week. Like, what? Yeah, and I need you to take over this and take over my customers and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, we had a week or less, and I'm finding out this information, and I love Emily. She's great. I've been working together for a few years, and I'm like, okay. So I go talk to her employees, I'm trying to figure stuff out, and we set up a meeting with Emily. Emily doesn't show up. Yeah, so we set up another meeting, she doesn't show up. Now, this is probably, you'll have to talk to her what she was busy doing, but if you got a week, you're just admitting to yourself and everyone else a week before you're going to jail, you probably got a lot of stuff to do. So I don't know why she wasn't showing up. So I had access to most of the accounts, and then she had a computer with all the access to everything else. And so we didn't get to meet. She just sent me a couple of emails. So that week she told me we didn't get to meet. We had a couple calls, so we didn't actually do the official transfer. She was supposed to give me her laptop and her phone so that she was communicating with people. So the day she went, she texted me and said, hey, I gave my laptop to my friend Jason. I'm like, okay, well, what does he have to do with the business? There's stuff on there I need. And I didn't get a response because it was too late. And then I couldn't find Jason. He wouldn't respond to emails and whatnot to me. And because I didn't really care about the laptop. There was just account information I needed on there. And then I started meeting with some of the people she was working with. And they hadn't been paid in several months. So that was a problem. And I started meeting with some of the clients, and they didn't actually have contracts with her. And that was a problem. So I started meeting with some of that they'd put, like her one employee had been working for 3 or 4 months with this one client, and they were supposed to pay a certain amount of money. She had a verbal agreement for equity, and I sat down with them, and they said, yeah, we don't want to do that, and we only want to pay you 1/3 of what we owe you. And I had some serious discussions with them, and then I told them where they could go and that we wouldn't work with them anymore because they wanted us to continue to work with them. You know, they had some commitments and whatnot. It was funny because being where I am in the community, they wanted my help on a bunch of stuff and they kept coming back. I'm like, why would I deal with you? You are, you know, Emily is verbal. Yeah, she might have been naive to make these verbal contracts with you. And I get it that maybe you're not in a situation to fully commit, but when you turn your back on this, you know, this is the problem. So as I started digging deeper in the clients, most of the clients hadn't paid her in a bunch of months. So now I'm trying to find the money to pay her employees, to get from clients who don't have contracts with them, who haven't paid in months. And I don't actually have the financial information to find out how many months they haven't paid because it's all on the laptop. So I pulled my hair out a little bit on this stuff, as you can imagine. And we eventually had to shut the business down because I went online on the servers that were doing stuff and the database was corrupt. So I needed some license keys to get it going that were on the laptop. I couldn't get it going. So we had to shut down the stuff and stop billing our clients, and people started complaining. But there was a lot of, so after 6 months or so, but I got her employees paid. We closed out some of the deals and it was rough, but really it was, I'm going, here's my business, see ya. And she tried to call me a few times from prison, but running the largest startup community in Canada, I have over 20,000 people have my number in my card. So if I don't know who's calling me, I won't pick up the phone. So most of her stuff is coming from like blocked ID and whatnot. Because I do get calls at 11 o'clock at night saying, hey, can you tell me the free startup events in Toronto? Like, why are you calling me now? Just because they happen to have my number. So I don't. And we didn't connect too often while she was in prison. And while I was trying to get access to the laptop, I was texting her mother. Her mother was freaking out because she didn't know anything about her business, these connections. So it was a very interesting and stressful experience. But we eventually closed down the business okay. But yeah, it was definitely mismanaged to get to that point. And Emily was not a business person. She liked doing the work with people, doing the engagement, building their following and doing that stuff, but not invoicing, not keeping track of contracts, not doing the accounting style work. And that was a little bit of a nightmare.
So, okay, so you're now going back to, so you didn't know that she'd been busted or anything. You knew nothing until she went into jail.
Yes, pretty much the week before, that's when she told me the story.
How did you, when did you next, I mean, obviously, you know, you came in today to chat with us and obviously you and Emily have kind of maintained your friendship despite
Absolutely.
that.
We're still partners in a couple of businesses.
Okay.
We have both had our stressful times in the in our lives. So she was there for me.
Okay.
So I forgive, I support.
Okay.
So when she came out, I'm happy to do this.
Right.
So, you know, with Cons and Kernels, it was fantastic.
Yep.
This whole journey, I teach pitching in Toronto as part of our Toronto Starts with a couple great, fantastic pitch coaches. So we helped her in several ways to get her ready. It was fantastic to find out she was going on Dragon's Den and her relationship with David Chilton at that time. So all I could do is support and help and do whatever I can and connect, and that's kind of what I do.
Okay, so what have you learned personally? What have you, because you know every good startup, well, for every startup there's a thousand failures.
Yep.
And obviously that was perhaps your roughest business closure that you had experienced at the time.
Yeah, I would say.
So what did you learn from that?
There's a lot of reasons businesses fail. And entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs for a reason. Some of that is because they don't fit into a 9-to-5 schedule. They don't like being told what to do. They want to do this, or they have bigger dreams. So I deal with a lot of people with a lot of failure, or I want to chase the next big idea every 6 months. So I've seen that kind of stuff. But what I've learned from this is even from like failure, or even if you start with success, she had running a successful business, but not taking care of the business back end is what led to what it ended up failing. She could have hired somebody that would have taken care of that, and it could have kept running. So from a business point of view, there's a lot of lessons to be learned in this is not my strength. I don't like doing this. If I let this go, my business is going to fail. Let's figure out how to take care of that. But from a understanding and working with entrepreneurs and seeing the signs and then trying to maybe catch them early and help them through those situations, having dealt with people who do deal with depressive and alcohol and substance abuse situations, it's interesting to see them coming out of those. So there's a lot of detecting those signs, seeing it early in companies that I'm working with, and hopefully trying to either help them or remove myself from those situations, because if they're not seeking help, then there's not much you can do. Okay. But having said that, I've worked with several companies that try and bring people out of the prison system or help underprivileged, try and educate and get them back to the community, and I think those initiatives are great. We all deserve a second chance. And you can have 10 complete failures and then have a great success. And if you look at what Emily's doing with Cons and Kernels, it's a classic example of some major failures, flame outs, and look at this success that comes out of it. And people, when you accept your flaws, that's when you can truly be successful. When you're lying to yourself and you're not true to yourself, that's when all this other stuff happens. So you have to accept your flaws, understand them, and then you can deal with them.
So, describe the first time you saw Emily after she'd come out of prison. Like, how did that?
So we met at the coffee shop, Starbucks. She'd just come from the gym. She looked different because I was used to super bleach blonde Emily. And, you know, she had more natural sandy hair. But she definitely had a healthy glow about her that I hadn't seen in a long time. And I think she felt ashamed, you know, about all this stuff. And that's why she took so long to talk to me and all that stuff. But we're both very accepting people. So it's just like, hey, we just saw each other last week. She talked about this and talked about, you know, the company she started and how just every penny counted in prison. So they were popcorn spices and the spices, and how she came up with this idea. And it was just very passionate. It was just her, back to her. It was great.
You sound quite emotional about that.
Well, it's nice, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I am, because I have a strong relationship with Emily for years, and she went to some dark places. And you see her come out of it. Yeah, I'm very emotional about it.
Do you ever see Emily in an emotional state? You ever seen Emily emotional?
Oh, we've had some screaming fits at each other. So yes. And sometimes, you know, I start them. So let's be fair about that situation. Yes, I've seen her in an emotional state. I've seen her very inebriated. Sometimes I've caused those emotional states. And I've seen some of the extremes.
So, did you ever meet Emily's co-accused?
Emily's?
Co-accused.
No.
No? So, you think that was the only time she did it?
I'm going to say no.
Right.
And again, I don't know enough about the detail. I'm going to say life is a slippery slope.
Right.
You start with one drink after work, and next thing you know, it's two, and I'm only going to stop at the bar for, you know, to talk to somebody, and next thing you know, it's 6 beers a night. And so, you know, hey, first I'm just sneaking a joint across the border or something because I'm just going to have a good time with my friends. And, you know, so when you say the first time, I don't know what the time before looked like, but it seems like a natural progression from doing this one thing, this one time, nobody cares, to all of a sudden you're strapping this huge amount of stuff and you're in this situation that, oh my God, this is not where I want to be. So I don't know what maybe the time before looked like or whatever, but I would say it was a few more times before that led to this.
So do you think that's because she was, I don't know, because she was too smashed or too stoned to really know what she was doing, or do you think it was just an uncontrollable slippery slope that she hit?
I think it's a combination of these things.
Okay.
I think you get in with the wrong crowd, and so let's when I say the wrong crowd, let me tell you a story that she probably didn't tell anybody.
Sure.
So I got a text from Emily one morning saying, I just woke up from a 72-hour sleep. I just drank a whole bunch of the date rape drug. And I'm like, what? Actually, I'm like, what the fuck? Oh yeah, I'm at my friend's place and I just took a drink out of this container in the fridge and it turns out to be this. And I'm like, what kind of friend has a bottle of this in his fridge at home that you're hanging out with? So I don't want to get into any of those details, but you start questioning the people around her. So when you're in that mode where everything around you is acceptable, and you're drinking and on drugs, and having someone with a date rape drug in their fridge, a bottle of it, is cool, then yeah, you are both on that slippery slope and are in some drug-induced haze that makes sure this is okay. So I think it's a combination of both. And she didn't listen to me. I was like, you got to stop hanging around people who have this kind of stuff, because this is not cool. Anyway.
So did any of the people and clients, because obviously when she got busted, or when she came out, I can't remember what the timeline was either, she had this 8-page piece in The Spectator, right? Did any of your clients know, or the people around you know? Or because it was in Toronto, it was Hampton, fairly separate?
I didn't deal with any of her Hamilton clients,
right?
Like personally. So I don't know if they knew. We told our standard story was Emily's on a digital sabbatical, a digital detox. So she's disconnecting and we're handling all that stuff for now. And people generally accepted that because that was kind of a thing around that time. People were unplugging for a while. So it was just an excuse. I think, people kind of knew stuff was going on, but I don't think most people knew.
So it was kind of okay, and then people just moved on or dealt with someone else or did whatever they needed to do.
Yeah. I honestly, in the world of small companies, like you're talking about startups where you're talking about 3, 4, 5 people, this kind of people come and go. Yeah. Companies come and go. So you don't think twice. Yeah.
And her followers on her Terry Tuesday account, they just kind of died off, and some survived and some...
Yeah, I didn't post anything on her Terry Tuesday account once, everything went down, because I didn't know what to do. Like, we're not running a business, you're on a digital detox, I didn't really, and after a while you just don't think about it. So some of them still survive, but after a while they just drift off.
If you're not entertaining them, they go.
Yeah, they start going away.
Yeah. All right, so tell me another story about Emily's behaviour. What's the worst thing she ever did to you?
What's the worst thing she ever did to me? Let me get back to that one.
All right. What's the funniest thing?
There's a few. Like, she dealt with some shady people. So we had, I run events with our community, and we had an event planned at one of her friends' businesses. We had this community, we had a bunch of tickets and people coming, and so that morning, the morning of the event, I get an email saying, oh, buddy moved businesses in the middle of the night. I'm like, what? Yeah, he at midnight last night, they picked up desks and moved from one location to the other, so we got to tell everybody to go to this place. And I'm like, this doesn't sound cool. Why wouldn't you know that? Why wouldn't you book this ahead of time? So we got in a fight about that, and I canceled the event and gave everybody refunds because what kind of business are we going into? That kind of stuff happened a lot. Every once in a while I go to a venue and they didn't have our booking when we were doing startup drinks. Whether that was an Emily mess up or not, but we fought horribly about those things. I think most of the stuff we fought about was when she had a commitment to other people. And she blew me off all the time, like all the time. And you get used to it. So, it takes a month to get that one meeting with her to get stuff done. So after a while, you just start doing it and you just tell her what's being done and you don't wait for her. And that's just kind of how things worked. But when I've got 400 people coming and they're looking for her to present and, oh, I'm not coming. What do you mean you're not coming? There was always an excuse. There was always something. And you're killing me. So she did that a few times. And sometimes it was hungover and sometimes it was other things. But usually after I gave her grief, sometimes she would pull herself together and come, and sometimes she wouldn't. And that's kind of the biggest problem, is when I've got all these people here expecting you and I don't have you. I can be a replacement, but I'm not you. They want you. Yeah. I can't give them a cheeseburger and say, yeah, this is Emily, here you go. So that was the difficulty for most of the stuff. Not showing up for a couple of client meetings here and there, I can cover all that. So it was par for the course when working with Emily.
So, having met her again, how do you feel she's changed?
Well, she's definitely more punctual. And even while we were waiting outside, we were talking about military time. And I remember early on, she's seeing an advertisement that said 17:30. And she's, what's that? That's 5:30. But now she's military time, which is hilarious. I think she's definitely healthy. When you see her, you can tell the difference just from the life is back in her eyes. She's not drunk or stoned or on stuff all the time. Her energy level is good. She's eating healthy. Her ideas are good. So she's driven. Every time I talk to her, I'm cooking, I'm doing this, I'm dropping off these cooking, meaning, her popcorn. Yeah. She's got deliveries. Yeah. So like even now, she dropped me off here. She's gone to pick up stuff so she can make her deliveries so she can get into Toronto today. So she's always hustling, and that's the clean Emily I remember back in the early part of our relationship. And if she can hold that together, I think she's an unstoppable force, because her drive is incredible, her magnetism and charisma is incredible, and she can really take an idea and sell it to anybody.
I think we should cut there.
Cut.